The starship Horizon's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a gentle shudder. Captain Park Do-Yun stood at the bridge window, his hands clasped behind his back, staring at something no human had ever seen before. Meridian Prime. The capital world of the Galactic Council floated in the darkness like a jewel. Its surface glowed with the lights of 10,000 cities. Rings of orbital stations surrounded it, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Ships of every shape and size moved between them like fireflies dancing in the night. "It is beautiful," said Lieutenant Yoon Hana, stepping up beside the captain. She was the ship's xenolinguist, trained in the study of alien languages. For 3 years, she had prepared for this moment. Now that it was here, she found that words failed her. Do-Yun nodded slowly. 50,000 years, he said quietly. They have been building this for 50,000 years, and we just learned to leave our own solar system. Behind them, Commander Kang Tai-ho checked his security screens for the 100th time. He was a soldier, not a diplomat, and something about this place made his skin crawl. But he said nothing. This was a day for hope, not suspicion. The Council's welcome was everything humanity had dreamed of. 12 species sat in the great chamber of the assembly hall. The Valorians were tall beings made of living crystal, their bodies singing with inner light. They spoke first, praising human art and music. "Your species creates beauty from pain," the Valorian ambassador said. "This is a rare gift." The Morthak came next. They were insectoid creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. They admired human technology, especially the speed at which humans invented new things. "You are young," the Morthak trade minister clicked, "but you think fast. We will do good business together." One by one, the species of the Council offered their greetings. The Thanari, shapeless beings that lived in liquid metal suits. The Gorvan, massive reptilian warriors who respected human stubbornness. The Kel, small furry creatures with 3 tails who found humans endlessly amusing. And finally, the Sulari. They were the eldest of all Council species. No one knew how old they truly were. They appeared as beings of pure light, their forms shifting and flowing like slow flames. When the Sulari ambassador spoke, every other species fell silent. "Humanity," the Sulari said, its voice echoing in ways that seemed to touch the soul. "You have come far in a short time. We see great potential in your kind. The Council welcomes you." The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Trade agreements were signed. 3 star systems were gifted to humanity for colonization. The Solari themselves blessed the agreement with an ancient ritual of light. On Earth, billions watched the ceremony broadcast. People danced in the streets. Children pointed at the sky and dreamed of the stars that now belonged to them. Ambassador Cho Yunji, the leader of humanity's delegation, wept openly as she signed the final document. "This is the beginning of a new age," she told the cameras. "We are no longer alone." The celebrations lasted for weeks. In the months that followed, humanity spread across its new systems with remarkable speed. Colonies sprouted on worlds that had never known human footsteps. Alien traders arrived in Earth's orbit, exchanging technologies that advanced human science by decades in mere months. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries were cured with council medicine. Hunger became a memory. It seemed too good to be true. Dr. Shin Jian thought so. She was a data analyst assigned to the diplomatic station orbiting Meridian Prime. Her job was simple: study the Council's public archives and help humanity understand its new neighbors. It was quiet work, the kind that most people found boring. Jaeyeon loved it. She spent her days swimming through oceans of data, learning the histories of species that had risen and fallen across millions of years. The Council's archives were vast beyond imagination. A person could spend 10 lifetimes reading them and never finish. But Jiyon noticed something strange. There were gaps in the records. Certain time periods were marked as restricted. Certain species were mentioned in early documents but disappeared from later ones without explanation. When she tried to access these sections, she found them locked behind encryption so advanced that it made human security look like children's toys. She brought her concerns to Ambassador Cho Yunji. The ambassador listened patiently. She was a kind woman with gray hair and gentle eyes that had seen much of human politics. When Jiyon finished speaking, Yunji sighed. "Doctor," she said, "every civilization has secrets. We have only been members for 6 months. We cannot expect them to share everything with us so soon. Trust takes time." "But the encryption," Jiyon began. "Is not our concern," Yunji said firmly. "We are guests here. We should behave as guests. Focus on your assigned work, Doctor. Leave the mysteries for another day." Jiyon bowed her head and left the ambassador's office. But she could not forget. Late at night, when the station was quiet, she returned to her terminal. She began to chip away at the encryption, using every trick she had learned in her years of training. It was slow work. Sometimes she made no progress for weeks, but piece by piece, character by character, she began to break through. She did not know what she was looking for. She only knew that something was wrong. She felt it in her bones, in the way the Sulari watched humanity with their ancient, patient eyes, in the way the other species sometimes fell silent when humans entered a room, in the gaps and shadows of the archive. Something was hidden in the darkness, and Jiyon was determined to find it. Above her, the stars of Meridian Prime burned cold and bright. Somewhere in those stars, humanity was building its future, full of hope and dreams. They did not know that the clock was already ticking. They did not know that they had been chosen. And they did not know that the council was watching, waiting, counting the days until the harvest would begin. Humanity flourished under the council's guidance. The colony on New Sol became a paradise of green forests and crystal lakes. The mining stations of Kepler system produced enough resources to fuel 100 worlds. Human children grew up learning alien languages alongside their own, dreaming of careers among the stars. Admiral Baek Sunho commanded the Third Fleet from his flagship, the Unyielding Spirit. He was an old soldier with white hair and a face carved by decades of service. He had fought in the last wars on Earth before the Council came. He remembered what humans could do to each other. He never fully trusted the peace. On a cold morning in February, his communications officer brought him a message. It was a distress signal from Mining Colony 7 on Kepler 7, a small settlement of 3,000 souls. The signal was weak and broken, cutting in and out like a dying heartbeat. Under attack, they came from, "Please, anyone." "The children." Then silence. Sunho ordered his fleet to maximum speed. They arrived at Kepler 7 in 16 hours. They found nothing. The colony was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Where buildings had stood, there was only smooth, glass-like ground. It looked almost natural, as if the rock had been melted and reformed. No bodies, no wreckage, no sign that 3,000 people had ever lived there. Sunho walked across the glassy surface, his boots clicking against something that should not exist. His soldiers fanned out around him, weapons ready, finding nothing to fight. "Admiral," his science officer said quietly, "the glass extends down nearly 100 meters. Whatever did this, it was not natural." Sunho said nothing. He stared at the horizon where the sun was setting over empty mountains. He reported his findings to Earth. The council responded within hours. "A tragic natural event," the Morthak representative explained. "Plasma bursts from your star. Very rare, but not unknown. We grieve for your loss." "Plasma bursts do not leave glass," Sunho said coldly. "Admiral," the Solari's voice cut through, gentle as always. "You are understandably upset. But you must trust the wisdom of those who have watched the stars far longer than your species has walked upright. There is no enemy here, only nature, only tragedy." The transmission ended. Sunho was left alone with his suspicions and his anger. He filed his report. It was classified and buried. He was told to return to patrol duty and speak of Kepler 7 no more. But Sunho was not the kind of man who forgot. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Shin Ji-yeon continued her secret work. She had made a friend. Lee Min-ho was a former military AI specialist, discharged 5 years ago for asking too many questions about Council technology. He was young, angry, and brilliant. When Ji-yeon contacted him through hidden channels, he agreed to help without hesitation. "I always knew something was wrong," Min-ho told her during their first encrypted call. "The way they share technology with us, it is too controlled, too careful. They give us exactly enough to make us dependent, but never enough to threaten them." Together, they worked on the Council's encryption. Min-ho's skills with artificial intelligence combined with Ji-yeon's patience created tools that neither could have built alone. Slowly, the walls began to fall. They found fragments first. References to something called the Protocol, lists of species names that appeared nowhere else in the archives, dates that corresponded to mysterious gaps in galactic history, and one phrase that appeared again and again, culling threshold. Meanwhile, on Meridian Prime, Lieutenant Yoon Hana had risen to become one of humanity's senior diplomats. She was respected by the Council, trusted by her own people, and deeply troubled by things she could not name. The Solari elder Orveth had been her mentor for 3 years. He was ancient even by Solari standards, his light flickering and dim. He taught her the old languages, the forgotten histories, the songs that the Council sang before the first human drew breath. One evening, she found him dying. His light was fading, collapsing inward like a star going dark. She knelt beside him, holding what served as his hand, a tendril of warm, fading energy. "Orveth," she whispered, "what can I do?" The old Sulari's eyes, if they could be called that, focused on her with terrible clarity. "Listen," he said, his voice like wind through dead leaves. "Listen to what I cannot say while others watch." Hana leaned closer. "They chose you," Orveth breathed. "Your kind. Because you breed fast. Because you forget. Because you trust." His light flickered violently. "When they come for you, there will be enough left to start again. There always is. That is the design." "What design?" Hana demanded. "Orveth, what are you talking about?" But the light was fading. His last words were barely a whisper. "Forgive me. We watched. We always watch. And we never speak." Then he was gone. Hana sat in the darkness for a long time, her heart pounding. She recorded everything Orveth had said. She sent it to Admiral Park Do-hyun, her old captain from the Horizon's Edge, now one of Earth's highest military commanders. Do-hyun read her report. He shook his head sadly. "He was dying, Hana," he told her. "The mind goes strange at the end. Even alien minds. Do not let the ramblings of a dying creature poison what we have built here." Hana wanted to argue, but she saw the peace in Do-hyun's eyes, the comfort of a man who had found hope after a lifetime of war. She did not have the heart to take that from him. Not yet. On the station above Meridian Prime, Dr. Shin Ji-yeon made her final breakthrough. The encryption shattered, the hidden files opened, and the truth poured out like blood from a wound. She read for 3 hours without stopping. When she finished, she sat in silence, tears streaming down her face. Then she began to prepare her message. It would reach every human being in the galaxy, every colony, every ship, every station. It would show them the records, the numbers, the cold mathematics of genocide. It would show them the culling protocol. And it would change everything. Dr. Shin Ji-yeon had planned it carefully. She used emergency broadcast codes, military channels, civilian networks, everything she could access. When she pressed the button, there was no way to stop it. On Earth, people stopped in the streets as their devices lit up. On the colony ships traveling between stars, crews gathered around screens in silent horror. On military vessels, soldiers watched with fists clenched and jaws tight. The message was simple. Ji-yeon appeared on screen, her face pale. Her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "My name is Dr. Shin Ji-yeon," she said. "I am a data analyst assigned to the diplomatic station above Meridian Prime. For 5 years, I have been studying the Council's archives. What I found will change everything you believe about our place in this galaxy." She took a deep breath. "The Council has welcomed 347 species throughout its history. We are number 348, and I have found records of what happened to every single one of those species." The screen changed. Lists appeared. Names of civilizations humanity had never heard of. Dates stretching back millions of years. And beside each entry, the same word repeated over and over. Culled. "The pattern is always the same," Ji-yeon continued. "A young species develops faster than light travel. The Council makes contact. They are welcomed with gifts, with technology, with promises of friendship. They are given worlds to colonize. They are encouraged to grow, to spread, to build." Her voice hardened. "And then, when their population reaches a certain number, when they have enough resources, enough genetic material, enough technology worth taking, the Council harvests them." Images flashed across the screen. Cities turned to glass, just like Kepler-7. Entire planets stripped of life. Populations reduced by 90% in a matter of days. The survivors' memories erased, their histories rewritten. "This is called the culling protocol," Ji-yeon said. "It has been enacted 347 times. Every species you see in the Council today has survived by participating in it. The Solari created it. The others follow it. They are not our friends. They are not our guides. They are farmers, and we are their crop." The message ended. Silence fell across human space. Then the screaming began. On Meridian Prime, the Council moved faster than humanity expected. Ambassador Cho Yoonji demanded an emergency session. She was granted one within the hour. The great assembly hall was full, every species represented, every eye watching as the human woman strode to the center of the floor. "Explain this," Yoonji said, holding up a data tablet. "Tell me that this is false. Tell me that your archives have been corrupted. Tell me anything." The Solari ambassador drifted forward. Its light was calm, even peaceful. It regarded Yoonji the way a human might regard an angry child. "The data is accurate," it said simply. A gasp ran through the human delegation. Yoonji's face went pale. "You admit it?" she whispered. "There is nothing to admit," the Solari replied. "The culling protocol is not a secret. It is simply not discussed with those who are not ready to understand it. Humanity was not ready. Humanity is still not ready. Your analyst acted foolishly, and now your people are frightened and confused." "Frightened?" Yoonji's voice rose. "You have murdered 347 species." "We have managed 347 species," the Solari corrected gently. "There is a difference. The galaxy has limited resources. Young species breed quickly, consume rapidly, and destroy themselves through war and waste. Left unchecked, they would burn out like candles, taking entire star systems with them." The Morthak representative clicked in agreement. "The protocol is mercy, quick death, controlled reduction. The survivors are given new memories, new hope. They continue. They are happy." "Is that not better than extinction?" Yoonji stared at them in horror. "You are insane," she said. "You are all insane." "We are old," the Solari said, "and we have seen what happens when the young are allowed to grow without guidance. The culling protocol has maintained peace for 50,000 years. It will continue to do so whether humanity accepts it or not." The Solari turned to address the full council. "In light of the contamination of human data networks, I move that we accelerate the protocol timeline for Species 348. The harvest should begin immediately." The vote was called. 11 species voted in favor. Only the Kel abstained, their small, furry faces twisted with something that might have been shame. Yunji watched the vote in silence. When it was finished, she straightened her spine and faced the council one last time. "You have made a mistake," she said quietly. "The worst mistake of your long, miserable lives." The Solari's light flickered, the first sign of emotion it had ever shown. "You are one species," it said. "Barely 5 centuries old. You have 100 billion people scattered across a handful of systems. We have 40,000 warships moving toward your borders as we speak. What can you possibly do?" Yunji smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We can remember," she said, "every face, every name, every child you are about to murder. We can remember all of it, and we can make sure the galaxy never forgets what you truly are." The Solari's light flashed, and Yunji's body jerked as an energy beam struck her chest. She fell to the floor, smoke rising from her robes. The human delegation screamed and ran. Council security forces cut them down. The broadcast continued. Yunji had made sure it would keep transmitting no matter what. Across human space, billions watched as their ambassador was murdered. The Solari turned to face the cameras. "This transmission is now ended," it said calmly. "Humanity will be processed according to the protocol. Resistance is noted, but irrelevant. The harvest will proceed." The screens went dark. For a moment, human space was silent. The shock was too deep for sound. Parents held their children. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Old men and women stared at the sky with eyes that had seen too much. Then, slowly, the silence changed. It became something else, something cold, something ancient, something that had slept in the human heart since the first caveman picked up a rock and refused to die. Admiral Baek Sunho was the first to speak. His voice was broadcast across every military channel, calm and clear. "All units," he said, "this is Admiral Baek Sunho, assuming command of the United Human Defense Force. The Council has declared war on humanity. I want every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have ready for battle within 48 hours. He paused. "They think we are cattle. They think we are afraid. They think we will run and hide and beg for mercy." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Show them what humanity does when someone threatens our children." Across the galaxy, the forge fires ignited, and the Council's fleet moved closer, confident in its ancient power, certain of its inevitable victory. They did not understand what they had awakened. They would learn. Every species before had done the same when the truth was revealed. They ran to their colonies. They hid in their ships. They begged for mercy. They bargained. They wept. Humanity did none of these things. In the 48 hours after Ambassador Cho Yunji's death, the entire human economy transformed. Factories that had been building luxury goods began producing weapons. Shipyards that had been constructing passenger vessels started welding warships together. Universities that had been teaching art and philosophy began training soldiers. It was not organized. It was not planned. It simply happened as naturally as breathing. On Earth, General Im Jae-won came out of retirement. He was 76 years old, with a bad leg and hands that shook from old injuries. He had commanded armies in the last great war before the Council came, a war so terrible that humanity had sworn never to fight again. Now, standing before the cameras, he looked almost young again. "They call us a young species," Jaewon said, his voice rough as gravel. "And we are. But they forget what the young carry inside them. We carry the fire. We carry the hunger. We carry the will to survive that has driven us since we crawled out of the mud and looked up at the stars." He pointed at the sky. "Those stars belong to our children, not to farmers, not to butchers, not to creatures who have forgotten what it means to fight for something you love." His eyes blazed. "They thought we were cattle. They will learn we are wolves." The speech spread across human space like wildfire. Soldiers who had never seen battle volunteered by the millions. Scientists who had studied peace their whole lives began designing weapons of war. Children too young to fight drew pictures of Earth's flag and hung them in their windows. Humanity was not running. Humanity was preparing. The first battle came 3 weeks later. Captain No Yuna commanded the exploration vessel Morning Star. She had spent her career mapping uncharted systems and making first contact with non-Council species. She had never fired a weapon in her life. When the Council's advance fleet entered the Proxima system, she was the closest human commander. "Captain," her first officer said, voice shaking, "they outnumber us 50-1. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Our ships are not designed for combat." Yuna stared at the tactical display. 3,000 Council warships, 60 human vessels, most of them converted cargo haulers and research ships. "We are not designed for combat," she agreed. "But neither were our ancestors when the ice came. Neither were the first humans who faced lions with nothing but sticks. We are not designed for combat. We are designed to survive." She opened a channel to her fleet. "All vessels, this is Captain No Yuna. I will not order you to die. I will not command you to throw your lives away. But I am going to fly into that fleet and make them bleed for every inch of space they take. Anyone who wishes to join me, follow me now." Every single ship followed. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted 6 hours. The Council expected the human ships to break and run. Instead, they charged directly at the heart of the alien fleet. When their weapons ran dry, they rammed. When their engines failed, they set their reactors to overload and drifted into enemy formations. When their bridges were destroyed, the surviving crew kept fighting with hand weapons and emergency suits. The Morning Star died last. Its hull was torn open, its engines destroyed, its crew reduced to 17 survivors. Yuna herself was bleeding from a wound in her side that should have been fatal. She piloted what remained of her ship directly into the Council flagship. The explosion was visible from Earth. When the battle ended, humanity had lost 200 ships. The Council had lost 3,000. The Morthak commander sent a confused message to Meridian Prime. "They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They fly their burning ships into our hulls and die laughing. What are these creatures?" The Council had no answer. Admiral Baek Sunho studied the battle reports with cold satisfaction. The losses were terrible, nearly 15,000 human soldiers dead. But the Council had expected an easy victory. They had received a nightmare instead. "They are scared," he told his staff. "For the first time in 50,000 years, they are scared." He turned to Dr. Oh Soyeon, a small woman with quiet eyes and hands that never stopped moving. She was humanity's greatest quantum physicist, and she had been working without sleep for 3 weeks. "Is it ready?" Sunho asked. Soyeon nodded slowly. "The Cascade Bomb," she said. "It targets the dimensional barriers that the Council uses for faster-than-light travel. When detonated, it collapses those barriers in a sphere roughly 10 light-years across. Nothing using Council FTL technology can enter or leave that sphere. Side effects? Mass destruction of any ship caught in transit. Possible destabilization of nearby stars. Unknown long-term effects on space-time itself." Soyeon met his eyes. "It is a weapon of last resort, Admiral. Once we use it, there is no going back. Sunho thought of Kepler 7. He thought of the glass that covered the ground where children had once played. Build as many as you can, he said. The war shifted. The Council had numbers and technology. Humanity had rage and creativity. Where the Council fought to harvest, humanity fought to survive. Where the Council calculated acceptable losses, humanity refused to accept any loss at all. Admiral Park Do-hyun, the man who had once dreamed of peace, led the counterattack at New Seoul. When the Valorian ambassador tried to negotiate, offering to spare the colony in exchange for Earth's surrender, Do-hyun's response was broadcast across all frequencies. You watched us be selected for slaughter. You said nothing. Your silence was your vote. We remember. New Seoul was not spared, but neither was the Valorian fleet. Do-hyun destroyed every single ship, including his own, rather than let them retreat. He survived, barely. The rescue teams found him floating in a destroyed escape pod, unconscious but alive. When he woke, he had only one question. How many did we get? All of them, his aide replied. Do-hyun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Good, he said. Good. One by one, the Council's species learned what it meant to fight humanity. The Gorvan, who had prided themselves on their warrior culture, discovered that humans could match their strength and exceed their cruelty. The Thanari, who fought with liquid metal weapons, found themselves outmaneuvered by humans who turned their own technology against them. Even the Sulari, ancient and powerful, began to feel something they had not felt in millennia. Fear. The stars burned. The fleets clashed, and humanity, young and furious and utterly unwilling to die, pushed back against the darkness with everything it had. The war was only beginning, but the Council was no longer certain of victory, and that uncertainty would be their doom. In that time, humanity lost 4 billion souls. Earth's oceans were scarred by orbital bombardment. 3 colony worlds, New Busan, Hope's Landing, and Frontier 7, were destroyed completely, their populations erased from existence. The names of the dead filled databases that would take centuries to read. But humanity survived, and one by one, the Council fell. The Morthak were the first to break. Their hive worlds depended on constant trade, and humanity's Cascade bombs had shattered their supply lines. When their queens began to starve, they sued for peace. Admiral Baek Sunho accepted their surrender personally, then handed their leadership over to the Morthak workers who had been enslaved for generations. The revolution that followed was swift and final. The Valorians shattered next. Their crystal bodies were beautiful but fragile, and humans learned to exploit that weakness with terrible efficiency. Dr. Oh Soyeon developed resonance weapons that could crack Valorian flesh from the inside. Entire armies fell screaming, their song finally silenced. The Gorvan fought to the last. They respected strength, and humanity gave them strength beyond their darkest dreams. The final Gorvan warlord died with Admiral Park Do-hyun's blade in his chest, laughing as the light left his eyes. "You fight well," the Gorvan gasped. Perhaps you were never cattle after all." "No," Do-hyun replied quietly. "We never were." The Thanari fled into deep space. The Kel, who had abstained from the vote to cull humanity, were spared and eventually became humanity's first true allies. The lesser species scattered, some begging for mercy, others simply vanishing into the void. Only the Solari remained. They gathered on Meridian Prime, the world where they had ruled for 50,000 years. Their light still burned, ancient and terrible, but something in it had changed. Something that might have been fear. Fleet Admiral Yoon Hana led the final assault. She was not the same woman who had translated alien poetry in the great halls of the Council. Her face was scarred. Her left arm was mechanical, a replacement for the one she had lost at the Battle of Centauri Gate. Her eyes held a coldness that would never fully thaw. But she was still Hana. She still remembered Orveth's dying words. She still remembered every single person humanity had lost. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we have visual on the Sulari defensive fleet, 2,000 ships. They are moving to intercept." Hana nodded. "How many do we have?" 8,000, Admiral, plus the Cascade bombs." Hana stared at the view screen. Meridian Prime glowed in the distance, beautiful and terrible. "Open a channel," she said. The Sulari appeared on screen, the same ambassador who had ordered Yunji's death. Its light flickered rapidly, the Sulari equivalent of nervous breathing. "Fleet Admiral Yun Hana," it said, "you have fought well, but this is Meridian Prime. This is the heart of the Council. If you destroy us, you destroy order itself. The galaxy will collapse into chaos. Millions of species will suffer." Hana tilted her head. "You taught us that the galaxy runs on blood," she said. "We were excellent students." "We can still negotiate. We can still—" "Negotiate?" Hana's voice cracked like ice. "You murdered our children. You erased civilizations. You called it mercy." She leaned forward. "There is no negotiation. There is only justice." She cut the transmission. "All vessels," she ordered. "Begin the assault." Meridian Prime burned. The Sulari fought with everything they had. Their ships were faster and more powerful than anything humanity possessed. Their weapons could tear through human shields like paper. For every Sulari vessel destroyed, 3 human ships died. But humanity had learned patience from the Sulari, and they had learned something else, something the ancient race had forgotten long ago. How to sacrifice. Captain after captain flew their dying ships into Sulari formations. Soldiers boarded enemy vessels and fought hand-to-hand in corridors that burned with alien fire. Scientists who had never held a weapon aimed bombs at targets they would never live to see destroyed. When the last Sulari warship fell, humanity had lost 4,000 vessels. The survivors limped toward Meridian Prime, their hulls scorched, their crews exhausted. Admiral Hana walked on the surface of the Council's capital for the first time since Yunji's death. The Sulari ambassador waited for her in the ruins of the assembly hall. Its light was dim, flickering like a candle in a storm. "Please," it said. And there was something in its voice that had never been there before, genuine fear. "We are the oldest. We remember the beginning. If you destroy us, you destroy knowledge that can never be recovered." Hana stopped a few feet away. Behind her, 100 soldiers trained their weapons on the dying creature. "You have been alive for 50,000 years, she said softly. "In all that time, did you never once ask yourself if the culling was wrong?" The Sulari hesitated. "It was necessary, for order, for peace." "For your peace," Hana replied, "not for ours." She raised her hand. The soldiers prepared to fire. "Wait." The voice came from behind her. Hana turned to see an old woman limping through the rubble, supported by 2 younger officers. Her face was lined with age and sorrow, but her eyes were sharp. Dr. Shin Ji-yeon. She was old now, older than she should have been, worn down by years of war and grief. But she had survived. She had seen the truth, and she had lived to witness its consequences. "Admiral," Ji-yeon said, "may I speak?" Hana lowered her hand. "You've earned that right." Ji-yeon approached the Sulari slowly. She studied the ancient creature with eyes that held no hatred, only exhaustion. "My grandmother survived a war," she said. "A terrible war, long before the Council. She lost everyone she loved, and she told me something that I have never forgotten." She paused. "She said that vengeance is a fire that consumes the one who holds it. She said that the only way to truly win is to become better than those who hurt you." The Sulari's light flickered. "Then, you will spare us?" "I will give you a choice," Ji-yeon replied. "Which is more than you ever gave anyone else." She turned to face Hana and the soldiers. "We can destroy them," she said. "We have the power. We have the right. After everything they have done, no one would blame us." She looked back at the Sulari. "But if we do, we become them. We claim the right to decide who lives and who dies. We continue the cycle that has poisoned this galaxy for 50,000 years." Silence fell over the ruined hall. "What would you have us do?" Hana asked quietly. "Choose differently," Jion said. "Build something new. Not a council of predators hiding behind wisdom. A true alliance, equal, transparent, where no species ever again has the power to harvest another." Hana stared at the old woman for a long moment. Then she lowered her hand for good. The Galactic Council was abolished. In its place rose the Free Assembly of Species, a government with no secrets, no hierarchies, no chosen ones. The surviving council races were not exterminated but judged individually. The Kel were welcomed as founding members. Others earned their place through service and repentance. The Sulari were exiled to the edges of known space, stripped of their technology, left to contemplate their sins in silence. And humanity? Humanity became something new. Admiral Park Do-hyun gave his final address on the steps of the new assembly hall, rebuilt from the ashes of the old. "They thought our fury was our weakness," he said. "They thought we would burn ourselves out. They did not understand." He looked up at the stars, stars that now belong to every species, equally and forever. "Our fury was never about destruction. It was about love. Love for our children, love for our future, love for every species that would come after us and deserve better than slaughter." He smiled, not the cold smile of war, but something warmer, something human. "We burned the stars not because we hated them. We burned them because we loved ourselves enough to survive. And now we love this galaxy enough to protect it." The stars, once silent, began to sing again. And in the archives of the Free Assembly, a single entry was added to the record of Species 348. Humanity. Not the strongest, not the oldest, not the wisest. But when the darkness came, humanity was the species that refused to go quietly, and that made all the difference.